Believe it or not, there are some corners of the world where the American passport doesn't hold much power. In the grand scheme of globetrotting, the American passport is a golden ticket to most destinations. Yet, there are places where being an American tourist isn't exactly a welcome badge. It's not always about disdain for the stars and stripes. The reasons can be as diverse as the countries themselves. Political tensions can make a country unwelcoming. Take for instance a nation that has strained relations with the United States. The government may restrict travel to protect its interests. Safety concerns also come into play. Some countries may be embroiled in civil unrest or war, making it unsafe for tourists, particularly those from nations perceived as adversaries. Other reasons could be more nuanced, rooted in cultural, historical, or diplomatic factors that go beyond the scope of this introduction. So, are you ready to find out which countries are a no-go for American tourists? Buckle up because we're starting with number 10. Taking the 10th spot is the enigmatic North Korea. This secretive nation, shrouded in mystery and intrigue, has had a strained relationship with the United States for decades. The tension between the two countries is palpable, a remnant of the Cold War era that has yet to dissipate. It's a relationship that can be traced back to the Korean War in the early 50s, a conflict that technically, to this day, hasn't formally ended. North Korea's isolationist policies and strict government control make it one of the hardest countries for Americans to visit. The U.S. Department of State strongly discourages American citizens from traveling to North Korea, primarily due to the high risk of arrest and long-term detention. North Korea's legal system operates under its own set of rules, and minor infractions can lead to severe punishment. Moreover, travel to North Korea is heavily regulated. Independent travel is not allowed, and one must be part of a guided tour to visit the country. Even then, the itinerary is strictly controlled and monitored. Tourists are often only shown what the government wants them to see, which usually paints an unrealistically positive picture of life in North Korea. The potential dangers for American tourists are real and serious. There have been several high-profile cases of American citizens being detained in North Korea for various reasons. The tragic case of Otto Warmbier, an American college student who was arrested and sentenced to 15 years of hard labor for allegedly attempting to steal a propaganda poster, is a grim reminder of these potential dangers. Despite the allure of exploring a country so different from our own, the risks far outweigh the rewards. There are plenty of other fascinating destinations around the world where Americans are welcomed with open arms. So, unless you're Dennis Rodman, you might want to steer clear of North Korea. This basketball legend somehow managed to forge a unique friendship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. But for the rest of us, North Korea remains a no-go zone, a place where the American passport loses its power. And next up on our list at number 9 is Iran. Now Iran is steeped in history, and its rich Persian culture is a draw for many, but for Americans it isn't that simple. You see, the relations between the United States and Iran have been tense to say the least. This goes back to the Iranian Revolution in the late 70s and has been a roller coaster ride ever since. Political tensions are high, and this has led to the U.S. State Department issuing travel advisories, warning Americans against traveling to Iran. The warnings focus on the risk of detention and imprisonment. American citizens, particularly those with dual nationality, have been detained or prevented from leaving Iran. Accusations often include espionage and posing threats to national security. So, while the allure of Persian culture, the ancient ruins and the colorful bazaars might be enticing, the risks make Iran a tricky destination for American tourists. Coming in at number 8 is the war-torn country of Syria. This nation, steeped in ancient history and culture, is unfortunately fraught with ongoing civil unrest. A brutal civil war has been raging since 2011, causing irreparable damage to its cities and people. This grim reality has prompted numerous travel warnings from governments worldwide, including the United States. The U.S. Department of State strongly advises against all travel to Syria due to terrorism, civil unrest, kidnapping, and armed conflict. The risk of violence is simply too high, and the safety of travelers cannot be guaranteed. Moreover, the U.S. Embassy in Syria has been closed since 2012. This means that if an American citizen were to encounter trouble while in Syria, there would be no immediate embassy or consulate support available. Despite the rich history, Syria is a dangerous destination for any tourist, let alone Americans. For now, this captivating country remains off-limits, a tragic testament to the devastating effects of conflict. At number 7 we have Somalia. This East African nation, known for its stunning landscapes, is unfortunately marred by an unstable political situation. The central government's grip on the nation is tenuous at best, with large areas effectively autonomous or under the control of various factions. This makes for a highly unpredictable and potentially dangerous environment, especially for foreigners. Further complicating matters is the threat of piracy. The waters off the Somali coast are notorious for pirate activity, making sea travel in the region particularly risky. Additionally, the lack of a significant diplomatic presence is a major concern. The United States does not maintain an embassy in Somalia, meaning American citizens have limited support and protection. This lack of a safety net can turn any minor incident into a major crisis. So, while Somalia has beautiful landscapes, it's not a place for Americans to venture lightly. The risk factors substantially outweigh the potential rewards of travel. Halfway through our list at number 6 is Libya. A country located in North Africa, Libya is best known for its ancient history, Mediterranean coastline, and vast Sahara Desert. However, it's also currently known for its ongoing conflict, which makes it a risky destination for travelers, especially Americans. The political instability has led to a high risk of terrorist attacks. These can happen anywhere, at any time, and often without warning. The unpredictability of the situation is a major concern for anyone considering a visit. Adding to the difficulties, there isn't a U.S. embassy in Libya. This means that if an American encounters any problems, they won't have easy access to consular services. It's a significant factor to consider, as it means you're largely on your own if things go wrong. And let's not forget about the potential health risks. Due to the conflict, healthcare services are limited, and many areas lack clean water and sanitation. So, unless you're a seasoned war correspondent, Libya is a no-go. Coming in at number 5, we have Yemen. Tucked away in the southwestern corner of the Arabian Peninsula, Yemen, a country steeped in history and culture, has unfortunately been marred by escalating conflict. The country has been embroiled in a civil war since 2015, a devastating conflict between the Yemeni government and the Houthi armed movement. This war has triggered what the United Nations has labeled as the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with millions of people grappling with severe food insecurity and a crumbling healthcare system. The civil war has also resulted in a highly volatile security situation, with frequent airstrikes, military clashes, and landmines posing grave risks. This conflict has not only ravaged the country's infrastructure but also complicated its political landscape. Travel advisories from the U.S. Department of State have consistently cautioned against all travel to Yemen due to terrorism, civil unrest, health risks, and armed conflict. The country is currently under a Level 4 travel advisory, the highest level of warning. This means, do not travel. The State Department further warns that U.S. citizens in Yemen face extreme risks, and the U.S. government has a severely limited ability to provide emergency services. For Americans, the risks beyond the immediate threats of conflict and terrorism. There's the danger of being targeted for kidnapping or being detained arbitrarily. Additionally, the ongoing war has led to the collapse of essential services, including healthcare and transportation, further compounding the risks for potential travelers. So, while Yemen might be rich in history, home to 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and known for its unique architecture and breathtaking landscapes, the current situation makes it a risky destination for Americans. The ongoing conflict has transformed the country from a potential tourist hotspot to a perilous no-go zone. Remember, travel isn't just about exploring new places. It's about being safe while doing so. The world is vast, with plenty of beautiful, welcoming destinations. Until peace returns to Yemen, it's best to admire its beauty from afar. So, while Yemen might be rich in history, the current situation makes it a risky destination for Americans. Next up on our list at number 4 is Venezuela, a South American gem that's currently shrouded in turmoil. This once thriving nation is now grappling with a political crisis that's making headlines worldwide. 2 men claim to be the legitimate president, leading to a state of confusion and instability. Adding fuel to the fire is the soaring crime rate. Caracas, the capital, is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Stories of kidnappings, robberies, and even murders are not uncommon, making it a risky destination for travelers. Moreover, the U.S. Department of State has issued stern travel advisories. The Level 4 warning, the most severe, advises against all travel to Venezuela due to crime, civil unrest, poor health infrastructure, and arbitrary arrest and detention of U.S. citizens. So, despite its natural beauty, Venezuela's current situation makes it an unwelcoming place for American tourists. Taking the 3rd spot on our list is Iraq. This Middle Eastern nation, steeped in history and culture, unfortunately, remains a hotbed of ongoing conflicts. The threat of terrorism looms large, with sporadic incidents of violence and unrest reported in various parts of the country. Travel advisories issued by the U.S. Department of State underscore the high risk, advising American citizens against all travel to Iraq. The precarious security situation, coupled with inadequate public infrastructure, makes traveling in Iraq quite challenging. The lack of reliable healthcare services and the risk of kidnapping further add to the concerns. It's also worth noting that the U.S. government's ability to provide emergency services to its citizens in Iraq is extremely limited. So, unless you have a compelling reason to visit, Iraq is best left off your travel itinerary. Remember, the world is vast and there are plenty of other destinations where you can explore, learn, and create memories without putting your safety at risk. Just missing the top spot at number 2, we have Afghanistan. A country with a complex history, where the echoes of an ongoing war continue to reverberate through its rugged mountain ranges and bustling city streets. The instability brought about by years of conflict has resulted in a high risk of abduction for foreigners, particularly Americans. The U.S. State Department has issued a Level 4 travel advisory for Afghanistan, advising Americans not to travel there due to the high risk of crime, terrorism, civil unrest, kidnapping, and armed conflict. This is the highest level of travel advisory, a stern warning reflecting the serious safety concerns in the country. Despite this, Afghanistan is a land of intriguing paradoxes, boasting a rich cultural and historical tapestry that intertwines with the narrative of its people. Its ancient ruins, vibrant bazaars, and warm-hearted locals tell stories of a different Afghanistan, one that existed before the turmoil. So while Afghanistan has a rich cultural heritage, the security situation makes it a dangerous place for Americans. And finally, the number 1 country where Americans are least welcome is South Sudan. In the heart of Africa, South Sudan paints a vivid picture of a nation in turmoil. The world's youngest country, having only gained its independence in 2011, is sadly marked by a decade-long civil war. This conflict has led to a humanitarian crisis of colossal proportions, affecting millions of its citizens. The civil war, which erupted in 2013, is a complex and multifaceted struggle. Political disagreements escalated to armed conflict, resulting in a seemingly never-ending cycle of violence. The war has not only split the nation along ethnic lines, but has also devastated the economy, causing widespread famine and displacement. The humanitarian crisis is vast and heartbreaking. Millions are displaced, forced to flee their homes, while others face extreme food insecurity. The country also grapples with epidemics of cholera and malaria, exacerbated by a healthcare system in shambles. The situation is dire, and the international community struggles with how best to respond. With such a volatile backdrop, it's no surprise that travel advisories strongly discourage travel to South Sudan. The U.S. Department of State has issued a Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory, the highest level of warning. This advisory is due to crime, kidnapping, and armed conflict. The situation is so precarious that the U.S. Embassy in Juba is only able to provide limited emergency services to U.S. citizens in the country. This means even if you find yourself in a bind, assistance might not be readily available. South Sudan, with its rich cultural heritage and resilient people, deserves better. Yet the reality, for now, is a country fraught with danger, making it the number 1 country where Americans are least welcome, not by the people, but by the circumstances. So there you have it. The top 10 countries where Americans are not welcome. Remember, travel is about understanding and respecting different cultures, but safety should always be your top priority.